Hi, everybody. I'm Anaya Brooks, and I will start off by saying I am not a professional cake decorator. However, I'm very self-taught. I've been doing this for about 18 years. What brought me to start making my own cakes is I was a young newlywed. I had a little boy, and when it came time for my son's first birthday cake, they wanted $40 for a cake that I said, I bet I could make for $5. So I practiced and practiced. I got some tips. I got some bags. I got some tips, and I just practice. So we'll go over your books very briefly. This is your project record book. I also judge as well. And I will tell you as a judge what I am looking for. I am looking for every page, if you're a beginner, intermediate, or wherever you're at, I look for those to be done, to be completed, according to what it says. And I also, because I may or may not ask questions on that, I also like your project review. I like to see what you've done, how you feel you've done with that. I like to interact with my students, and it is very important that, like you heard in the very beginning, to whoever you choose to be your helper, that is someone who can help you with this. So unless your 80-year-old grandfather was a cake baker, I wouldn't recommend him to be your helper. However, if there's someone else in your 4-H group, an aunt or anybody, they may not have any experience with decorating cakes, but you can learn everything you want to know by YouTube. So that's another good help too. If you have your aunts help you with your aunt, your mom, your sister, your brother, your uncle, YouTube, Food Network, you're good to go. It's very important. I know one thing I was struggling with last year is really hard for us to judge if there's not pictures, at least. So on page 16 on, I know the beginning level, you are required to do 5 single layer cakes. Intermediate level, you are to do 5 1 or 2 layered cakes. And advanced level, you are required to do stacked and tiered cakes. I did not see how many you're required to do, but the more the merrier. I would love to see pictures. When you go in for judging, they would appreciate pictures as well, a little comments about what you use, especially your techniques. And as a bonus, if you can bring a cake in that day, it doesn't have to be a large, elaborate cake. It could be a very small cake, something that you did that day or the night before. It could physically show me your work, and then maybe taste it. That's a bonus as well. That's what we like to see. So that is with the project record book. Your skills and techniques, we're going to go over some of them. They're pretty self-explanatory. And then make sure that whoever helps you you date it, and they initial it. And if there's any comments, like when you first begin the star tip, say you're doing the star technique and you're doing a star border. And the first time you started may not have been the greatest, but the second, third, fourth time you do it, you're going to get better. And so that's a comment in there that I like to read. I like to see growth, and I like to see fun. So as long as you're having fun and you're growing, that's awesome. Also, definitely make sure, other than these 2 booklets that you have, that you have the Decorating Resource Handbook. This is super, super important. This you can learn a lot from. It'll teach you, it's fairly visual, but it will tell you like your tips and things that you need to know to make what you're making. So before we get into that, I have a trick for, actually, and it even says in this book, will tell you when you're baking your cake, when you, especially for the intermediate and advanced, and you're doing stacked cakes, it's extremely, extremely important you have a level cake. If you do not have your cake level, it'll go. I have had a cake to go a couple times and it was not good. So what I like to do, what a friend had taught me, is when my cake comes out of the oven like this, while it is still warm, as soon as you pull it out, you double up a paper towel, place it on top of the cake. Now you can wear a mitten over your hand so the steam doesn't burn you, but you just press on the cake while it's flat and move that around, and then you'll get a relatively flat cake like this. So that's a good little trick. Okay. Today, I'm going to show you, I'm going to kind of go between the beginning and intermediate level. And then at the end, if anybody has any questions or wants to see a different technique, we'll work on that. So I have my cake. I'm going to move this down, if you can see. Sorry, y'all, I had to use my phone because my laptop is being crazy. So I have a stand, and it moves around. I have my bottom layer on there, and I already put icing on what would be my middle. So now I will take my cake, my completely cooled cake, which is extremely important as well, and I'll place it right on top. And if you see, it's fairly, well, it's a little crooked, but it's flat. Maybe a little crooked there, but it is flat. Everybody has their own technique on how to ice a cake without getting crumbs on it. Some people do a crumb coat, some people do not. If you're in a hurry and you don't want to do what they call a crumb coat, that is just a basic little coat. It catches all the crumbs, and you put it in the refrigerator, you let it cool, and so it adheres, and then you ice the outside of it without getting crumbs in your icing. If you do not have time to do that, or you think that there's other ways around it, there are. This tip, if you see it, this end has teeth on this end and is super smooth on there. This is what I use to ice my cakes with. It does it super, super quickly. So I start and I'll go around. I only made one batch of icing up, so I'm hoping I made enough for this. I just spin the cake around like so. Then I'll start with my sides. I'll start and I'll just keep going around. Like so. And I'll go up top, make sure I have as much icing on here as I can get. Okay. Now, I'll take my spatula and I'll start from the top and work my way down. I will just move it back and forth. And then I'll spin it around, try to make it nice and smooth. My plate's slipping, y'all. Okay. Scrape that off. Then I'll do the sides. And at this point, you can do whatever icing whatever icing technique you would like to use. I know what's popular now is what they call it, the rustic look to cakes. So this is a good place to do that technique with.
Anya, how important would you say it is to have your turntable stand that you have?
If you're doing a tiered or a stack, it's pretty important. Now, if you're just doing this because you're not sure that's really what you want to do, I wouldn't suggest you go out and spend the money on it. But if this is something that you're like, oh, I think I'm going to make this my hobby, or I think, I'm going to be the family cake baker and I'm going to make all the cakes of the family, that might be something you might want to invest in. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. I like the tables just because you're able to go around and you're able to get it completely covered and smooth out. Go this way. Okay. And then, so you have the gist of it all. If I had more time, I would be super picky, but you have the gist of it with that. So you can see it's a smooth cake and there's not any crumbs in it. So that's a good little trick. Now, when you get to this point, some people like to let it set, let the icing kind of not really, well, I guess, become more firm up the icing. And that's completely fine. You can put in the refrigerator or you can just leave it set room temperature, let it all come together, firm up. But you really need to think about what you would like to do for your design. So, and this is a good way you can start working and doing many different techniques. If you're not sure, we'll move this off to the side. If you're not sure on what you would want to do, but you want to practice before you make it more permanent, you get a piece of parchment paper as large or as small as you want. You can see that right there. Okay. Okay. So you get your parchment paper, and then we're going to fill, let me go to this side. There you go. We're going to fill a piping bag up. I get the disposable bags. You can get several of them. They have them at Walmart now. This or Hobby Lobby. I got 100 of them for $20. But you can get smaller bags as well. I go through them so I get the bulk. This is a coupler. You can see that. This is not necessary, but it's very handy. What this is this allows you to have your icing in your bag. You untwist this right here, that end, and you can change tips. Say you want this tip on, so you put it on, you do your thing, and then you realize, oh, especially with writing, because you may have where you want to write a little bit smaller, but use the same color icing. So you can just say, oh, finish with that tip. I'm going to put this tip on. And you're not having to throw it away a bag. You're not having to change another bag with the same exact color icing you just have. So that's very handy to have. So I am going to make a cake. I'm going to make a birthday cake. So what I do is I have my coupler on the end of my bag. I cut it just so it fits like so, completely, and it can come down a little bit. As long as this coupler doesn't pop out, you're good. I'll put the end on it, and I'll drop it down, and I drop it down in the cup, or jar in this case. What I do this time is I fill with my color icing. The reason I use a cup is because It's easier. And you do not get it all over your hands or all over the place. Most people will hold your bag like this in your hand and you're spooning like this. Well, what happens with your hand, your bag crumbles. So by doing it in the jar or in a cup, it just stays firm. It stays right there. You can fill it up and you're good to go. So I'm going to start. I know I'm making a birthday cake and I want my happy birthday to be large. So I will use, with writing tip, I will use number 5 tip is what I want. All your tips have numbers on it. And in the cake decorating resource book, it will tell you what each tip, the numbers are and what they're used for. So that's pretty handy too. You do not have to go out and buy all those tips because good golly, you'll have a fortune in tips. If you go and buy a basic kit, which is this right here, Walmart has it, Hobby Lobby has it, Joann's Fabric has it, Amazon has it. It's made by Wilton. Sunnyside Bakery makes them as well. This has all the tips you'll ever need for what you're doing in this book. So and these run about 20 bucks. So I got my bag, I got my tip, my writing tip, and I'm gonna go to my cake. Now that I'm finished icing it, I can do it on a table. You just need to make sure, and you can do this from a table. If you have one of those little lazy Susies at home that in the middle of your dining room table, you put salt and pepper on, you spin it around, you can use one of those. You don't have to buy one of these. Or just put it on a smooth surface, like this is a granite countertop, and it'll smooth just fine. It'll spin around just fine. But before I do my cake, I'm going to practice. So I hold it with whatever hand I use, and I write it, and I write with, and it's all on your wrist. So I'm going to write happy. So I'm going to do my age, make it big like this. And you have it to where your tip is not touching to the bottom of this, if you can see this. So you have at an angle, so you're writing at an angle, but you're not touching the parchment, because when you touch the parchment, you do this. It gets thinner and it gets sloppy. So you want to keep this up as you're writing. So after you practice writing on here and you no longer need it, you can start with your cake. So I like to start with the writing. A lot of people don't. There again, it's up to you. So in this particular cake, I'm going to make it say happy birthday. So I'm just going through. Take your time. If you want, guide with your opposite hand. And you just use with your wrist. And you're adding just slight pressure, not a lot of pressure, just light pressure, just enough to get the icing out. You don't want to squeeze it too hard because then it will go everywhere, or it can even blow out the side of your bag.
Just so you know, Anya, we have 8 minutes on the timer, okay?
So we're just going to put a happy day. That's what I'm going to put. So happy day. And then with these tips too, this is the round tip. With the round tip, you can make polka dots. So you just push them down and up, down, up. Light pressure as you pull them up. And when you do that, you'll see little tips. See these little tips on there? Don't worry about those. Once it sets up, you can push them down like this with your finger and they'll go away. They'll flatten right back out. So let's do a star tip. Star tip, you can do several different things with a star tip. You can do borders like so. You start here, you squeeze, lift, and pull. Pull. Squeeze, lift, and pull. Squeeze, lift, and pull. Squeeze, lift, and pull. You can do just drop stars, which you hold it down at a 90-degree angle, which is straight up and down, squeeze, release pressure, lift. So if you can see that, what we did, I just 90-degree angle, squeezed, release the pressure, and lift. And you have stars. Let's do drop flowers. This is a number 107 tip. Nope, I'm not gonna do that. Sorry about that. Yeah, yes, I am gonna do that. It's a tip number 107. We're gonna make some flowers. See how I popped that coupler end off, changed my tip because I want blue drop flowers. And then you do the same thing. You hold it at a 45-degree angle, which is slightly over. You squeeze, release, and lift. You can also hold it at 90 degrees and they'll change the look of it. So if you see that, it went from, that's a 45-degree angle, that's a 90-degree angle. Then if you want to fill the center of them, if you want to turn them into flowers instead of little stars, you will get a smaller writing tip. This is a 4, and I want my centers to be pink. And I'm just going to drop it right in the middle. Make a dot right in the middle, squeeze, release, and lift. Squeeze, release, and lift. Now I made my stars into flowers.
Okay, so kind of as we get ready to wrap up, I want to give young ladies an opportunity to ask questions.
Okay.
Feel free to unmute yourself to ask Anya to answer questions, ask her to demonstrate maybe something that you're sure about. Feel free to do that at this time.
Can you ask a question about the book?
Yes.
Do I have to fill out the value at the end of project or when sold in the equipment inventory?
Yes, you put the money value in there. Now, if you have, say your aunt gave you these 2 spatulas, their money value would be 0. If you got your tips, you put and if you bought the tips and you gave $12 for them, you write that down. So if the value is 0, if you didn't pay anything for them, if people gave them to you, then you just put a 0. That's it. I wouldn't leave them blank because they may ask, but I'll just put 0. Yep, that works.
Madison, did you have a question?
Yeah, can you show us how to make buttercream flowers? Not with the icing tip, but like on a nail or on the cake.
I knew someone was going to ask to see roses. Okay. Now, I will warn you, I'm a little out of practice. However, I will show you how my home ec instructor showed me a few years ago. I don't do them directly on the nail. I cut off these little squares out of parchment paper. Let me get this big boy out of the way. And here's why. So what you do is you put just I use a number 10 tip. It's a round, just a big old circle. So I just put a little bit in the middle of that, and that's just going to hold my parchment paper steady. Then I go right here in the middle, and I'm going to put a big blob going all the way up. You see that? Okay. Then you take the petal tip, and there's several different ones in there. The resource handbook has a list of the different size petals. It just depends on what size flowers you want. So this is a 104 tip, which is about a smaller mid-size, I would say. So I go, you see this tip right here? So I go, it's at an angle. So the bottom, the bigger part of the angle, it's like a teardrop, like a long teardrop. It's toward the bottom, and it tapers up to the top. You want the taper, the narrow part, to be up top because that's going to be your outward petal. So you get your bag. You got your icing. Now my icing is a little soft. We're going to try it anyway. So I always start from the top. You want to do the center of your rose. So you put that at a 45-degree angle. You wrap it around and stop, like you're making a C. If you can see this. Can you see it okay, Madison?
Actually, Madison said her screen is frozen, but go ahead because I'm recording it. I'll send it to her.
Okay. Good deal. And then you come at it right there again. And you're making another dollop. You squeeze and come back in and release pressure. Squeeze. And this point, you're making the petals. My icing's got a little warm today. Sorry about that. So you squeeze, release, you're on pressure. Squeeze, release, you're on pressure. Okay.
Very nice.
Oh, I just messed it up. Sorry about that. But that's how you do this.
But so if your icing gets warm, like you said, or soft, can you put it in the refrigerator and then get it back out?
Yep, put it in the refrigerator for about 5-10 minutes and then pull it right back out.
Okay.
Yep. And it'll firm up. And then when you slide it off the nail and it's stuck to that. So as you can see, I moved it too quickly. So if I take that and put it back in the refrigerator, it'll firm up, and then I can actually lift up on these leaves and make them lift a little bit.
Do you just do that with a knife or some type of flat?
Yes, you can do that. You can do it with your spatula. You can even do it with like a toothpick or the end of the nail. Go under there and just flip it up. Yep.
All right.
So
It
that's
shows
what
our time is out, so that any moment they're going to be taking us all back into the large room. So Anya, I want to thank you